Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our Buying a Home in Utrecht webinar, the first of this year. I'm doing it together today with my colleague Rick, who will be answering your questions as well in the chat whenever you have some questions. And we can also have a review of them at the end of the presentation. Of course, whenever the questions are not answered yet during this presentation. Maybe Rick, you can turn on your video as well for a short moment and say hello to everybody. So Rick is living in Utrecht, so whenever you're buying a home over there, it is possible you will meet him as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Philippe just said, I was born in Utrecht, and except for some time abroad, I've been living my entire life near Utrecht, so I know the city quite well.
Perfect. So let's start the webinar today together with you. We have the first introduction about myself. I'm the business unit manager with EHN, originally from Belgium, proud father of a daughter of 3 who thinks that she's 10 already, so that can give some funny situations. And I bought a home. I bought more than one in the meantime, but I bought a home in the Netherlands 3 years ago. So we know the process, and that's a little bit of experience we bring to you, of course, as well today. Maybe the first question I like to answer is, let's get to know you a little bit better. I have a small poll for you. I will launch it right now. And there you can tell us where did you find us exactly, or you meet some relevant information regarding this webinar. And what is the reason that you want to buy? I see that a lot of you like to settle, of course, that's very good. Some of you also like to build on some equity. I think that is possible. And you saw us via Instagram or colleagues or the newsletter. Perfect. Okay, very good. Then based on that information, knowing that you like to settle, but also want to build up some equity, I'm going to continue with the presentation. And of course, all those elements will be treated a little bit further in the presentation. So the first step that we are going to take is to explain a little bit who we are and what we do. Greatness is achieved in the agency of others. That's what they say. So we are not alone. We are a total team working in the total of the Netherlands, like Katie from Rotterdam, Giovanna living in Eindhoven, Ludo in Amsterdam, Rafaela in Groningen, Rick, as I said before, in Utrecht, and Ellen also in Amsterdam. So we're all living in different places, working together on a daily basis, of course. And we are able to help you in every city in the Netherlands where you like to buy a place. What is the most important to know about EHN is that we are no traditional real estate agent. We help with buying and renting, but we are not a traditional real estate agent in the sense that we are professionals, of course, but we also are expats, or the most of us ourselves, or when we were born in the Netherlands, like Rick, then we lived abroad as well. So we know what it is to find a home or buy a home, even when you are not born in that country, and that can give some specific demands and requests as well on the way. We charge a fixed fee, so we don't work with a commission. That's also important for you to know. We come to that a little bit later in the presentation again. We know what it is to settle in a new country. That is important. And of course, we like to bring you some added value. How do we do that? We make our offers, of course, in a way that it is totally inclusive, that the offer is made in the correct way, and that it is clear for the selling agent what is mentioned over there. So that makes also that selling agents take our offer very seriously. Of course, they know us from other deals. And in that way, of course, using our network, we can help you as well to make a good offer in first instance, to make a complete offer, of course, but also an offer where the selling agent knows if it comes from EHN, then it's very likely that we will close the deal and we will have no problems later in the process. We can help you also sometimes with booking viewings when it's no longer possible. Again, the selling agents know us in the meantime, and they know also that when we come, that we are really interested in the property. So sometimes when bookings are full and you cannot book a viewing yourself anymore, then it is still possible for us to put you on the list and to make it possible to go to the viewing of that house. Of course, if the property is so interesting that they have already like 150 people wanted to make a viewing and that exists, then it's difficult for us as well, but we can try, of course, and use our network for you. We support, of course, by reviewing Dutch legal and property documents, very important. You will receive a lot of documentation regarding the property at the moment that you like to make an offer or consider making an offer. But a lot of those documents are in Dutch. In that way, of course, you saw it already, a lot of people in the company speaking Dutch and will be able to translate what is in the documents to you in a clear way and in a summarized version, what is relevant for you to know before you make or consider an offer. We help define, of course, the market value of the house, and we do that using market data, and of course, it's recent market data. We come to this point a little bit further because this is very important. We will see that the asking price is one, but that the market value of the property is more important than the asking price for you. Of course, we will inform you about rules and regulations that apply, recent rules that change. Also now with the new government, there are some rules and regulations that are changed or going to change. We will inform you about that as well. And of course, we make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that as we did. As I say, we have a lot of experience in the team, so that helps us as well to help you in your process of buying a house, and don't make any mistakes because we experienced before and can guide you in a good way. What we're going to look in detail today is some introduction, of course, but also very important, some market info and also the market drivers. Very important to know what is the market doing on today and what do we expect for the market to happen next couple of months and years. What do you need of savings when you buy a house? Because of course you can use a mortgage, but you will need some savings as well. We're going to look in detail. 3 tips to win in the market on today, and then the timeline of the total buying process, that you know everything from A to Z, what to take into account. Maybe in the next poll, interesting to know for us, where are you exactly in the buying process? I'm going to launch it on the screen and you can give an answer. So I see that a lot of people are still in the research phase. Some of you are viewing a property, but not made an offer. That's totally logical. And some talked to an agent already in the meantime, but the majority didn't. Okay, very good. That's interesting information. And good as well, of course, that you then joined today in this webinar, because that's, of course, a good step to do, like the first step, to inform yourself always about the market and about interesting topics, and then to jump in the market, because we will see as well that closing a deal goes quite fast. So to be informed before starting is very useful. Some market info. What you see on the screen over here is some general numbers. What you see is that the average housing price in 2021 was around 438,000 euros. That's for the total of the Netherlands, and that's based on Q3. In the meantime, Q4 numbers popped up as well, so we need to update. But then what is around the average price of the Netherlands is 438,000 euros. That is for existing houses. If you go to see to new builds, then we come around 450,000 euros, so they are a little bit more expensive. But then you buy a new build, of course. And if we compare that to 1 year ago, then we had an average price around 334,000 euros. That was in 2020. So you see that, and you see that also on the graph, that the prices are really going up. What is important to know as well is that a lot of people ask, what are prices doing normally over time? That's something you can see on the graph as well. You see clearly that except for some dips in the prices in 2008, somewhere around 2011. That for the rest, prices keep on going up. Housing prices always go up, and if we compare that also to inflation, also an important element, then we see that when we make the comparison, that housing prices go even go up faster than inflation does. Of course, you're here today for Utrecht and not for the total of the Netherlands, although that can be possible as well, of course, afterwards. But for Utrecht in specific, we have some figures for you as well. And there we see that in 2021, there are 3,000 houses sold based on the numbers of Q4. And that was 30% down from last year, from 2020. So we see that, and that is correct, that the market is drying up, as they say in Dutch, that there are not too many houses for sale. You see that also in the second number, 1,274, and that's minus 46% compared to 1 year earlier. That means that the offer in the market on today is low. Of course, that is one of the reasons or one of the main drivers that you see if you go to look at the average purchase price in Utrecht. You come to an amount of 481,000 euros in Q4, and that's plus 20% if you compare that to 1 year ago. So plus 20% on the price in 1 year. That's really a big jump. But of course, as I said, if the offer in the market is low, then it is clear if the demand stays the same or even increases, that it will have a positive pressure on the prices, and the prices will go up. That means that we have an average price around 4,400 euros a square meter in Utrecht. Of course, we're speaking with averages, so there will be houses that are a little bit less expensive and some that are more expensive, that's clear. But still, it gives some trend if you see as well that they went up with 22% if you compare it on a year-to-year basis. And then we see that the sales time of the houses went up or went down in the sense that it's only like 20 days. So in 20 days, a deal is closed. And we see that it's 20% less than compared to 1 year ago. That means that it goes faster and faster in the market as well. And of course, everything has to do with the pressure on the market. Not that many offers in the market, and a lot of people that are in the market and try to buy a home. What are the main market drivers still on today and also going forward? Interesting to know is, of course, the fiscal benefits. They play a role. You have the tax exemption. You know that if you buy a house and you're younger than 35 years old and you're buying a home under 400,000 euros, then you don't have to pay any transfer taxes. If you go and live in the house yourself, then you only pay 2% transfer taxes. And if you do it as an investor, then you pay on today 8%. And going forward, it will be a little bit more, and it will even be 9%. Of course, you have the interest rebate. So the interest that you pay on your mortgage, you're able to deduct it from your salary before it gets taxed. That's very interesting, of course. And the last point as well in fiscal benefits is the capital gains, in the sense that if you resell your place and you invest it in another property, then you're not taxed on that capital gains. So that's very interesting as well, of course. If you step into the market, I saw that some people want to build up equity. That's totally possible. And then when you sell the house, you can take that equity with you and buy something new with the total profit that you made. You also have the tax-free parent donation. That means that up to 100K, if you offer that to your children and they invest in real estate, that it can also be exempted from taxes. It will still apply this year. It seems for IT reasons that they cannot implement starting 2023. So it will still be applicable in 2023, but for sure, as the government decided, it will stop in January 2024. We see as well, and that is in general in the market, low interest rates. We have to say that interest rates are going up a little bit for sure this year as well, but not in a way that financing is very expensive. And if you see as well on historical line, then we are really at a very, very low point. on today. So low interest rates, and that means that, of course, financing is not that expensive, and people can offer a higher price because of that. What we see as well, and that's very particular for the Netherlands, is that the rents are very high. Of course, we have also a rental department. There we see as well that rental prices are still going up, and that for some bigger cities as well in the Randstad, yeah, there is a shortage as well of good housing, and good housing with a certain quality. Therefore, the rents are very high. And then often when you go to the bank and you say, okay, I want to have a mortgage on 15 to 20 years for a certain property at the low interest rates that apply on today, then it is possible even that you only pay the same amount as rent, or even sometimes a little bit lower. And that means that yeah, you build up equity, what you don't do when you rent a place, of course. And at the same time, you are living in the same place at a nice location. Of course, lack of supply, as I said already, next to the fact that not too many houses are coming on the market, there is also in general a shortage in the market. The numbers differ a little bit, but we can say that between 250, 300,000 houses normally need to be built in the Netherlands just for the total demand of households on today that are looking for a place to stay. Of course, there are some measures that are taken by the new government or still need to be confirmed that are in the pipeline. And that means they are going to make some better rules for developers to be able to build faster. They're also going to make some rules that institutional investors are able to put their revenues and their profits back into the market. And as a result, they build more new builds and provide more different units in the market. But this still needs to happen, of course. We see as well that if we want to go forward, as I said, we have 250,000, 300,000 units that we are missing on today. So we need to have a provision of like around 100,000 houses to build every year. And that is, of course, also depending on the market, because as we see last years, the market was only able to build like around 70,000 houses and not 100,000. Yeah. So that lack of supply, of course, plays a big role. It's always the economic rule of demand and offer. And we see that the offer is low and the demand is quite high. So that means there keeps to be a pressure on the prices based on that element. Yeah. Okay, then we also see at some new rules that are entering the market, and that will have an influence, of course, on the short or the long term. What the government said as well is that, we see that investors step into the market, and of course, they buy the property and then lease it or rent it out to potential candidates. But of course, that makes that people that want to buy a house for themselves are less likely to be able to buy that property. That's why there is a national law which gives the municipalities the possibility to have a protection on who buys the property and what are the conditions to do that. And that means that investors need to take into account that there will be a self-occupancy obligation that will apply. Also, Utrecht said we're going to make a rule for that. It's not voted yet, so it didn't start yet, but it is likely it will be approved somewhere starting of March. And as a result, will go into effect second part of March or starting as of April. And that means that properties that have a WZ value of up to 440,000 euros, that for those properties, if you buy it, you need to live in that property yourself for a certain number of years. And normally it will be with a maximum of 5 years, but that you need to live in that property in first instance yourself. Yeah. The second thing is the national mortgage guarantee that is more focused on people with a lower budget. In 2021, you could use the national mortgage guarantee, which is the guarantee to pay back your loan, but also you are having the possibility to have some better interest rates on the mortgage that you take with the different financial institutions. And therefore, the cap was 325,000 in 2021. And for 2022, this cap is higher to 355,000. of course, following what is happening in the market, and therefore the cap is higher to 355,000. Yeah. So if you are within this budget range, then also look at those possibilities, because it can be a good thing to apply for the NHG and have a better interest rate, but also the guarantee to repay when necessary. And of course, the last element we just discussed briefly as well. It's about the interest rates. We see that interest rates are going up. Nevertheless, it's not going that fast as maybe expected last year. And what we see as well, and even the banks are saying that there were different articles from ABN AMRO and other banks with a forecast where they say interest rates are still low. They're going up a little bit, but not in the sense that in 2022 they will have a big impact on the prices. And therefore, they expect as well that prices still will rise this year. And they mentioned the number around 10 or 12% for this year, and also around 3 to 5% for 2023. What would you need in savings before you start? And that's important to know. As I said, we can, of course, apply for a mortgage, but we will also need a little bit of savings ourselves. And therefore, we made an overview what you need to pay when you buy a house. You can see as well a column that some of them are tax deductible, and some costs are tax deductible, but not all of them. The first element of cost that you need to pay, and that is on top of the purchase price, is the transfer tax. As I said, if you're younger than 35 and you buy up to 400K, then you can be exempted if you buy for the first time. But otherwise, you need to pay a transfer tax. And if you go to live in the property, that's 2% of the purchase price. Yeah. So that's easy to calculate. If it's only one of the persons that is below 35 and buying up to 400K, then you pay 1%. That's an option as well. Furthermore, of course, you need to pay for the notary. He will draft the mortgage deed. He will draft also the transfer deed. So you see the amount. It depends a little bit from different notary to notary, also a little bit from city to city, but it is a price around 600 to 1,100 euros for a mortgage of a transfer deed. And you have some cheaper notaries and some more expensive. That depends a little bit on your taste as well. Then, of course, somebody will assist you with the mortgage. It is or the advisor with the bank, or it is an individual mortgage broker. They will charge a fee to you as well. Even a bank will charge you a fee around 1,500 euros. For a mortgage broker, an independent mortgage broker, it will be around 3,400 euros. But also over there, you have different parties that offer their services. And if you're really interested to know one of those parties, you can always contact us as well, because we have some mortgage brokers as well that work specifically for expats, as sometimes there can be a little bit of a difference in the file that need to be submitted. Then you have the real estate agent. As you see, a typical real estate agent will charge a fee around 1 to 2% of the purchase price. That is not the case with us. We only charge a fixed fee. Furthermore, in the presentation, I will give you the exact numbers, what we ask depending on the package that you choose. Then you have, when you bought the property or the offer is confirmed, then you need to pay the appraiser. Will be a cost between 650 and 800 euros, and the technical inspector, if that is one of the conditions of your offer, of course, of 435 euros. And then finally, the interpreter will sit at the table when you go to the notary to sign. That is necessary because it's also important for the liability of the notary that you understand everything. So you will need an interpreter over there. And then it's possible you work with a bank guarantee for the deposit. If you don't need that, you can also just transfer the amount into the account of the notary. It's 10% of the purchase price that you will pay down as a deposit. But if you don't have the money, you can use the bank guarantee. And as I said, if you apply for the NHG, then over there as well, you will pay 0.6% of the mortgage amount at the moment that you apply for that specific rule. But as I said, there are some specific and interesting conditions with NHG. So it can be useful to do that calculation, as in the end, you will pay less even with paying that 0.6% of the mortgage amount. Yeah, that are all the costs that apply as closing fees, as we call it, as extra costs you need to calculate on top of the purchase price. And then I will give you 3 tips to win in the current market. I'm just going to take a sip of my water, and then we come to that. So it is not an easy market. That's something that we said already. It is really a seller's market. So when a house is on the market, it will always be sold. The question only is at what price will it be sold. Also important for you, of course, because what is then a competitive offer? A lot of selling or even buying agents will always say, yeah, you need to overbid X% on the asking price. We say, okay, you can take that into account, and maybe somewhere it will give you some direction, but that is not the most important. The most important is not the asking price. The most important is the value of the property. And to give you a clear insight in that, we look at this specific property where you can see it's listed at a certain moment for 395,000 euros. If you go to look at that property, we see the asking price is 395,000. The market value, and that's based on comparables. We're going to look in the database, and then we see, okay, there are a lot of references in the neighborhood. These are the best references for the property, and we can calculate that the market value is 415,000. Then we see asking price 395, market value 415. And it seems in the end, you were the lucky one, or it can be somebody else, but let's hope that you were a lucky one. You bought the property at 435,000 euros. Yeah. What does that mean? That compared to the asking price, you needed to pay 40,000 euros extra, or 10%. So 10% of the asking price. For the market value, we see that it was only a difference with 4.8% of the market value. Yeah. So if we compare the purchase price with asking price 10%, if you compare it with the market value 4.8%. Now let's have a look at the same house, but let's say that the asking price was not put at 395, but at 375, so a little bit lower. And there is no specific reason. It's just the selling agent that says, maybe if we put it a little bit lower, we have more visitors, and then maybe we sell at a better price. So they put it at 375. The market value stays the same, of course. It's the same property, so the market value is unchanged. And the purchase price seems to be at your best offer, 435. So also exactly the same price. What we see then is that the difference with the asking price is not 10% anymore in this example, but it's 16%. So here you needed to pay 16%. In the other example, with 395, only 10%. But in the end, you pay the same purchase price, right? With the market value, we see that it stays the same. Of course, the market value doesn't change, and the difference with purchase price and market value stays the same. What is the important lesson from this one is that the asking price is not a given fact. It's also not calculated. It's just something that is decided by the selling agent or the seller where to put it. Yeah. If, of course, this asking price was not put at 375 or 395, but it was at 410, for example, and you still make an offer at that amount 16% higher than 410, yeah, of course, you will do an offer that is a lot higher than the actual purchase price. And in the end, it was not necessary. Yeah. So that's why we say asking price and general what is overbid in that neighborhood. It can be a little bit of guidance. I don't say you never have to look at it. It can be a little bit of guidance, but important is the market value. And the market value is also the amount that you are able to lend with the bank or financial institution for 100%. Yeah. So your mortgage will always be 100% of the market value of the property. So very interesting to follow this rule. It's not about the asking price. It's all about the value of the property. And how do we make a winning offer then? That is, very easy to say, but of course, it depends on every case if we succeed, yes or no. Offer a good price, that is important. It is not always the highest price, but of course, it needs to be a good price. What is important, as I said, we look at the value together with you. We say, this is the value of the property. But of course, we are still in a bullish market. That's what I said before. Prices still are going up. So every time a new house is sold, then it's a little bit more expensive than the neighbor that has been sold. So we offer a good price based on the value of the property. And also we link, of course, to references that are sold lately and what we see that market is doing on today to come somewhere to an agreement with you to make the best offer on the price. What is very important as well is offer security to the seller. Yeah, if the seller knows that you have a mortgage already that is approved, that is difficult in the Netherlands, of course, but that you spoke with your mortgage advisor, maybe have a letter from them. What is the amount that you can borrow based on your salary? That will give them some extra security, and you can make your offer as well based on a condition that the mortgage still needs to be approved. But sometimes as well, in a very bullish market, and we see that in some cities in the Randstad, and of course, also at the moment that a lot of people are on the market, like around summer of last year, then people don't put a financial clause in the offer anymore. And that means they just make the offer, and when it's accepted, they sign the purchase contract, and after that, they cannot back out of the deal anymore, or they have to pay a penalty of 10%, which you want to avoid, of course. But that means you need to be sure about your mortgage as well. So that's very important, to be sure about your mortgage. And then, of course, you can give some security to the seller as well. Maybe you have some savings. We will mention that, of course, in the offer as well, that you will use in your savings, and that the seller is likely, when he accepts your offer, that everything goes through until the end, and that you're likely to sign the transfer deed and pay the amount that is due. Offer the least amount of hassle, also important. What is a very special condition on that is, of course, the amount that the moment that the transfer is going to happen. And sometimes, and a lot of times, we see that the seller, they bought something new, or it is a new build or an existing property, but maybe they would like to do some renovations, and that means they sell it on today, but they can only move out, like say end of April or beginning of May or something like that. And then they say, for us, it's important because otherwise we need to find a solution in between. It will also cost us money, and it's not easy to do that on today. So if you can, if it's not that important for you and you can agree on that, that will be important for the seller as well, to take it into account. Maybe some furniture that they say, we don't need that anymore, we want to leave it behind in the property. If you say, we can all consider that, that's no problem. That gives the least amount of hassle. And we see when offers are closed, of course, that will play a role as well. And then a little personal touch can help as well, in the sense that when we send out the offer to you, we will also add a client profile to the offer. And of course, I'm not going to say that the personal touch is the most important. If the price is the lowest, then for sure they will choose for somebody else. But if prices are close and if conditions are close, then it can be that that personal touch will give the last push, that your offer is accepted and they will go forward with your bid. Yeah. So all these things we do together with you, of course, for every property, but very important. A winning offer is a good price, but for sure also security for the seller and not too much of a hassle. And then we come to the experts when the offer is accepted. We have the technical inspector and we have the appraiser. Again, it depends on the offer that you make. You can put that as a condition or you can leave it out. It's up to you to decide on that. But we have the technical inspector and the appraiser that come in to the property. And then I have a question for you. Maybe you can put it in the chat or just do it for yourself. But do you book them before or after your offer is accepted? When do you exactly book the technical inspector and the appraiser? I will give the answer immediately to your question. So when do we book those two experts? We do that, as you can see, at the sweet spot, and that is after the offer is accepted. Yeah. Why do we do that? Of course, both of them, and we saw it at the cost, at the closing fees already. They will both charge you a certain fee, and of course, if you are going to pay that fee every time when you're going to visit the property, but the offer is not accepted, then it can be that you have a lot of costs without even purchasing a house in the end. That's why we make the offer. And then after the offer is accepted, immediately we book those two experts, the technical inspector and the appraiser, and they come to the place and they make up the report. But we always make the offer in that sense that we have like 1.5 weeks between the offer and the purchase contract. And that means that when you sign the purchase contract, you will have already the reports in your position, both of the appraiser, which is important for the mortgage, and also the technical inspector, for you to know that everything is okay with the property, that there are no technical problems, and that you also know what maybe there is a little bit of maintenance to do, but what is the cost expected for that maintenance? Yeah. So we book the technical experts, and then you're ready to go forward with signing of the purchase contract. I will give you now the total timeline, starting from the search just until the end. Going through this total process will give you a little bit of insight about where we assist you with our services, but also to know what are the most relevant points on the total timeline, and what are also maybe some first steps that you need to do before stepping into the process. So the first, of course, is start with the search. That's very important. But maybe it's not on the screen like this, but the most important to say, and I said it before, is go first to your mortgage advisor or your bank and know what your budget is. That's step number one, totally before starting the buying process. You need to know what you can pay or what you're able to have as a mortgage, and able to define your budget, and then go to the market, of course, look for properties that fit your budget. So that's step number one, is that financial security about the budget. And then you start the search. There is one big website in the Netherlands. It's called funda.nl. Some people tell me, but if I'm looking in the price range that I'm looking for and in the city that I'm looking, I don't find that many properties. As I said before, the offer in the market is a little bit low one today. That is correct. So it can take a little bit longer until you find the nice home or the ideal home that you're looking for in that specific city and in that specific price range. But that is a little bit what it is. We cannot do a lot about that. So funda.nl, most important, also put the newsletter that you receive new listings every day, and that you're fast in booking the viewings. That is very important. Of course, you can follow also social media of selling agents, and sometimes we can also offer you something out of our network, but still funda.nl is the most important. Then you do the viewing, and after that viewing, we do two things for you. We will do first the property document research. That's where we are going to look at all the documents, if everything is okay with the property, or maybe some information is missing. And then we do also the price research, as I said, based on a database of recent transactions. We're going to look what is likely to be the value of the property, as that is important for your mortgage, and that you will have to pay a little bit of that with your own savings to close the deal. But if that all is clear to you, house is clear, and also what is likely to be the value and the purchase price, then we draft the offer together with you and we submit it to the selling agent. And of course, we hope that it's approved. As I just explained, then we have the two experts coming in, the appraiser and the technical inspection. And after that, we can go to sign the purchase contract. If you sign the purchase contract, very important to know is that the seller is bound to sell the property to you. You still have a cooling off period of 3 days after signing the purchase contract. And in that period, you can just cancel the contract without any reason. It doesn't need to be a financial reason or something else. In that period, you can just step out of the contract and cancel without paying any penalty. After that, it's not possible anymore. Then you will have, you need to put forward the financial clause that you put your offer conditional to getting a mortgage that is approved until a certain amount. Otherwise, it's not possible to cancel the contract or you pay a penalty. And then, of course, if the purchase contract is signed, you can start your mortgage application, and then the mortgage get approved. Here it's mentioned around 4 weeks. Sometimes it's already possible in 2 weeks. And even if you work sometimes with an independent mortgage advisor, we have some parties that can do it within 3 days. That can be very interesting the moment that you say, I don't take a financial clause, and that you can have your approval on the mortgage within the cooling off period. But that's in a specific case when you go with that specific mortgage advice. And then after the mortgage is approved, you will receive a statement of completion from the notary. That means a total financial balance with the purchase price and all costs that apply on the purchase that you do. And of course, deducted from that, any deposits that you made already and your mortgage that you're going to receive. And then the balance, of course, is the amount that you will pay with your own savings. The last step is going to the notary to sign the transfer deed. And of that moment, signing the transfer deed, then you're the official owner of the property and you can use it freely, of course, within the destination of the property. You can use it freely. Before going to the notary, we do one inspection together. It's not a technical inspection, but it's more like a final inspection that you do yourself. visual inspection of the property to see that everything is empty, to see that nothing is broken in the meantime between the moment that you did the viewings, and to see that everything is still working from installations that are in place. And then you sign the transfer deed, you receive the keys, and you can step into your own house, into your own home at that moment. One important element to take into account, if there are still some topics, something is not working, something is not functioning, or there is a defect at the house, you were not able to discover yourself, you were not informed, you cannot see it, also not during the technical inspection, and you could prove, you can prove somewhere that the owner knew about the defect, then you can still put him liable for that, but that is within a period of 2 months. So yeah, if you have that issue, I hope it doesn't happen when you buy a place, but then you can still go to court and ask the seller to pay you or to refund you the costs that are related to solving the issue. Yeah, but therefore you need to take into account that 2 months period. That is very important. So this is the total timeline when buying a house. Very important, the moment that you did the viewing, to have a look at all documents and somewhere defining the value of the property and defining the price, making a good offer, of course, reviewing the purchase contract and the transfer deed, that they are legally okay. And then together with your mortgage advisor, of course, apply for the best mortgage. That is very important as well. I told you that I would come back on our packages as well. You can see them here on the screen. You can also find them on our website. We have a smart package where we are more like a coach for you. We have our meetings online as we do like now. And therefore, you can see the price, of course, and what is included. We have a complete package where we are like a normal classic realtor to say. We assist you during the viewings, but also when the experts come to the site. And also we go to sign with the notary if that is allowed, because now it's not allowed due to COVID reasons. And we have also a special package for people that say, yeah, but I like a new constructed home. I like to have a new build and not an existing property. That's something we do for you as well. We can assist you with that, but there the process is a little bit different, as you will not be able to visit the property because it's not existing. You see also our package over there, and then the price that we charge for that. So you can find all those prices on our website, but then you have an overview, and you see we charge a fixed fee. We ask for a deposit payment before we start, but we never charge a percentage of the purchase price. So whatever is the price that you buy, you will always pay the same amount to us, and only at the moment that you conclude the deal and that you sign the transfer deed. With the notary. That's it. I believe we are ready now for some questions. So maybe Rick, you can read what was posted in the chat.
We had some good questions in the chat. Some of them I think we already answered. For example, about the prices, if it's going to decrease. But Karen had a good question about the parent donation. It's max 105,000 euros. Is that also for expats, or is it unlimited for Dutch or non-Dutch people?
Yeah, for the parent donation, we have to look in detail what applies for that. But normally, it's just parents giving it to their children. It's important to know indeed if there is a difference between Dutch people and expats. If you want to do that, you can always ask the question to us in a little email, and we will have a double check on that. Important to know is that for sure it will not exist anymore in 2023, and from that moment, there will be a little bit influence also on the prices, as on today also. It has an influence on people that are able to bring 100K with them and to make a very good offer based on that. So that was very important, but it's a very good question. And if you are in that situation, we can always double check.
Yes. Then we have another question of Ahmed. What is the market value for a new build?
The market value for a new build, yeah, that's totally different, of course. As I said, the average prices are a little bit higher in the Netherlands than existing houses. So they are like 20K more on average. But with a new build, there are a lot of costs that are included already in the price when you buy it. You don't need to pay transfer tax on top of that as well. But there you need to take into account that a lot of new builds are offered on the market without, for example, the finishing of a kitchen, without the finishing of floors, and some other little stuff that you need to do into the house. So when you look into a new build, as I said, it's a different process than with an existing building. Of course, the price is a little bit higher, but you have also a new property, so you can finish upon your own taste, as you can say, and the energy labels are very good as well in a building like that. The maintenance will be low in the first couple of years. So the average price is, if we speak on average, 20K higher, plus some finishing that you need to do, but of course you get a different type of house.
Yes, I'll see another question popping in. If we do a webinar focusing on new builds?
We do a webinar focusing on new builds indeed. And the next one will be somewhere around March. So you can follow our social media, or you can send us also a little email, and then we will subscribe you to that new build webinar.
Perfect. Another question: for people planning moving out of the Netherlands within 3 years, does it make sense to look for a house in the current market?
In the current market, as I say, still for this year, prices are going up with 10 to 12%. Next year is expected with 3 to 5%. Yeah, if you calculate that together, it's between 13 to 17%. Yeah, the costs are not that high that you do when buying a property. So yeah, it's still useful to buy a property even for 3 years.
Perfect. Then a very good question of Carlos. If I'm interested in buying a new build that is still being built, I will need to pay my rent of my current place plus the mortgage of the new build. Do I start paying 100% of the mortgage monthly payments, or do I start paying a fraction of it? If so, how does the fraction evolve during the period of construction until the keys are delivered?
Yeah, so when you buy a new build, indeed, you will have your current costs. If you're renting, it's your rent, of course. If you have a mortgage, then it's still the mortgage. For the new property, you will pay first a lump sum when you buy the property and you sign the new build contract. When you go to the notary and the transfer deed is signed over there, then you pay the first amount. And it is normally the cost for buying the land or your part in the land, and also some elements that are already built, maybe on the land, that you will pay at that time. The rest of the installments, it will be paid in different tranches, and it depends on how fast the builder is executing the works. So yeah, the general rule is when a certain level is reached and everything is finished for that part, then you will need to pay an extra amount for that. So you will never pay the total amount of the mortgage immediately. The amount that you will pay to the bank will go up depending on the finishing of the works by the developer. And until that moment, the total amount stays in a deposit with the bank.
Thank you. Then another question of Karen. How difficult is it to bring money from abroad to pay part of the purchase price? Where can we find more about this?
To transfer money from abroad, yeah, it depends a little bit on the country, of course. But normally, you should be able to open a Dutch bank account and transfer your amount from abroad to that Dutch bank account, and then you can pay like that for the savings that you need. Of course, if it is a specific case or a specific country, I don't know, based on the question, then you always need to double check with the bank, of course, if it is possible. Of course, it is logical that with every property that you buy, there will always be by the notary an anti-money laundering check that will happen when you buy the property. That's for every country the same, of course. So they will check what is the source of your revenue. But just to transfer the amount, it's like opening an account and doing the transfer between the accounts.
Right. And then the following question is, how does the bank guarantee work?
Yes, the bank guarantee, normally it's always part of the package that you have with your bank where you go for a mortgage. So you apply for a mortgage, and at the same time you say, of course, I also have to pay that 10% deposit upfront before I sign the transfer deed, and before the total amount of the mortgage is transferred to the notary. So then that bank will take into account as well there is a 10% of the purchase price that need to be guaranteed. And so the bank will send that guarantee to the notary and say, here is the guarantee for that property and for those people that are buying. That is enough for the notary. When you would not go forward and you need to pay a penalty, then the notary will claim that bank guarantee with the bank, and you will have to pay to your bank the 10% that it's replacing, of course. But it's easy like that. So it's a little cost for having a bank guarantee in place that will be sent directly from the bank to the notary.
Perfect. Then Gonzalo, I have a question. How hard is it to get a mortgage as a ZZ payer?
Yeah, as a ZZ payer, it's a little bit more difficult as you will need to prove what is the stability of your income. It is not impossible. It depends also how long you're doing already and on your specific case, of course, how certain is the income that you have. Yeah, it is not impossible, not at all. Maybe based on your specific conditions of your file, they will ask some extra questions or to provide some extra info. But the most important for the bank, of course, is to know that it is very likely that you will keep a certain amount of salary and that you will be able to pay the mortgage to them. It also depends if you do that together with a partner, yes or no. So yeah, to give an answer, it is possible, but of course, the details of the file will be important to discuss with your bank or mortgage advisor.
All right. Then Maria asks, if you buy a property by applying mortgage and leave the same property for rental, do we need to pay any amount to the government?
And what was, so you buy a new property and you keep?
If you buy, I think, with a residential mortgage.
So if you buy with the, yeah, so if you buy with a residential mortgage, normally you cannot rent out your place, not with a residential mortgage. Then you need to go back to the bank and ask the bank to change it into a buy-to-let mortgage. That's how it works. Yeah, very important to keep that into account because if you rent it out, you have a residential mortgage and you rent it out. If something goes wrong, yeah, then you can get penalties from your bank, or they can even sell your house in worst case scenario. So yeah, always take that into account.
Thank you. Then another question for a new build: if the house is 150K, if the savings are put in the notary, as I understood before, land cost 50K. For the mortgage is taken off 100K, then how does the first installment go? 50% from the savings notary account and 50 from the bank account. How does it work?
Maybe if there is, this is a real specific question, I believe. Maybe for this person, it's good to take contact with us. We are happy to support you in a specific case and to run through the calculations together with you. I think it will go a little bit too far now to go totally in detail based on those numbers. But yeah, please feel free to send a little email to us and we will help you with that. The most important is that with a new build, if you have own savings, and normally you use that for the first payment that you do at the moment of signing the transfer deed, and then the rest stays open from the mortgage that you receive from the bank as a deposit, and it stays in the bank for a certain number of time, and normally enough, of course, for the developer to finish the total building, and for you then to pay the total amount. But that's how it works. So you use your savings first, and then afterwards the mortgage for the new builds will be used that is in deposit with the bank.
All right, then a good question of Aswani. Buying a new build for second homeowners, do you need to pay transfer tax?
Yeah, normally if you buy a house, then you will have to pay 2% transfer tax at the moment that you go for a house and that you're going to live in there yourself. So we have the general rule is we don't pay transfer tax, or we are exempted if you are below 35 years old and below the amount of 400, and it's the first time that we apply for that rule. If you're above that age and above that amount, then you pay 2% tax if you're going to live yourself. And if you buy it as an investment, you pay 8% transfer tax.
And in case of a new build?
In case of a new build, you don't pay transfer tax. It's a VAT that is included in the total sales price, but there is no VAT, no transfer tax that applies on new builds.
All right, thank you. If I'm not a Dutch citizen yet, my parents are not European, is there a limit to the gift tax of 100 to 5,000 euro, or does it not apply to me?
Yeah, that was the same question that we had before. Yeah. I need to be honest that I need to double check on that because I don't want to give a wrong answer. But if it applies in your case, then I will double check on that.
If I have a financial clause in the purchase agreement, how much time do I have to potentially pull out?
Yeah, it will always be mentioned in your purchase contract as well, and it's part of your offer. But normally we say that within 4 weeks after the purchase contract is signed, you need to have an approval of the bank, or you have to have somewhere the proof that the bank doesn't allow for you to have a mortgage. What we see is that in different cities, you only need to have the proof of one bank. If you buy in Amsterdam in specific, then you need to have the proof of 2 banks. That's how it works on today. But normally, if you have the proof of one bank that you're not able to receive your mortgage within 4 weeks after the purchase contract is signed, then you can still pull out of the contract.
Thank you. Then what kind of insurance are needed for taking a mortgage?
What kind of insurances? Yeah, it depends a little bit from bank to bank, but most of the time, for sure, the bank will ask you to insure the property against fire. That's the most important, and then some other elements that apply. But that's part of the mortgage offer as well. They will tell you that you need to take this or this insurance. Sometimes they ask for other insurances as well for the balance that is left still to pay, that it's insured somewhere as well. But most of the time, if you have a fire insurance, for sure that is very important because of course they want you to keep the property, because that's the base of their mortgage. If it goes wrong, they can go back to that value, so they don't want it to get it burnt or something like that.
All right. Then what is the VAT for a new build?
It's 21%.
All right. The next question of Maria, what are interest rates for mortgages? Is it all the same for all banks, or do they have different rates?
Yeah, the mortgage rates, of course, you need to double check what is the actual status. They are not the same for every bank, that is clear. Different banks can have different mortgage rates. It depends, of course, what type of mortgage you take as well, because you can take a linear mortgage or an annuities or another type of mortgage. So that's also important to take that into account. Also, the percentage of the total value of the house that you take as a mortgage will have an influence. But even if you take those conditions, then even between different banks, the interest rates are different. And that's or you go to a bank or you go to a mortgage advisor. That's why I said sometimes it can be very interesting to go to an independent mortgage advisor that will have an overview of the total market and about all instances that offer mortgages to also to expats in specific, because that can also be a difference between banks. So the independent mortgage advisor can guide you a little bit through the total landscape. Otherwise, you will need to speak to different banks and ask them in specific what are their conditions. But for sure, they are not all the same with every bank.
Thank you. Then a good question of Jens. Do you have any information about any taxes you might have to pay after you bought the house, like a yearly tax for the land or so?
Yeah, you always need to pay the property tax. That's on a yearly base. You will also need to pay for water board. That's because of the water in the ground in the Netherlands is quite high. So the government needs to do some works about that. So you will pay for water board as well. Normally, you always pay for a sewage tax as well, and also for a waste tax. That are the most important taxes to take into account. Next to that, if you buy in a co-ownership, then you need to pay those taxes. but you will also need to pay some costs into the common spaces of the building, of course.
Thank you. Then another question. If you're not married, do you need to have a mandatory living together and notarized before applying a mortgage / purchase of a house?
No, that's not explicitly necessary. You don't need to be married. Of course, it can be, as I said again, depending on the banks as well and the specific conditions that apply, the conditions of your mortgage or your interest rates will differ a little bit. So if you're in a specific position like that, it's good always to talk to your financial advisor to know every detail and the details of the financial advisor in specific where you're talking with. But normally there's no problem to go forward. You don't need to be married or living together in an official way.
Thank you. Then another question of Jens. Are there any laws that force me to renovate a house after buying? For example, to adapt it to the latest environmental law?
Yeah. On today, that is not the case yet. There are, I'm sorry, there are a lot of parties that speak about, different rules that will apply for sure to get your house a little bit more sustainable. But on today, you are most of the time you're free to do that, but you can maybe get some subsidies in the specific municipality where you're going to live. Always check on that, or also some national subsidies. So that's the most important to double check, but there are no real obligations. Of course, going forward, that will happen, and there will be some penalties in some kind of way for houses that have very bad energy ratings. So in that respect, if you're looking a little bit on the long term, then it's always good to take that into account that at a certain moment, you will have to pay some penalties or do some renovation because otherwise you will be penalized by the government.
Thank you. A lot of questions about new builds from Arshin, but this next question is, how is the evaluation of the house for a new build being determined, or is there no valuation needed?
For a new build, normally there is no valuation needed, and they will take the purchase price as the value of the property, unless there's something very strange and they see that the value is like double what is normal for that region. Then maybe they ask for a valuation, but normally it's not needed.
Thank you. Then the last question, when does the WSZ value for the houses will be updated for 2021?
Yeah, the WSZ value is always calculated on the 1st of January of the year based on the data of the previous year. So now the WSZ values now are calculated for all houses on the moment of the 1st of January. And then one time a year, you receive an overview with the new value that applies for your specific house.
Thank you.
Maybe important, Rick, to mention to that is that people need to know that WSZ values are not the same as the value that the appraiser will make in the report to go to the bank. So the bank will always ask for an appraisal report, and that is the base for the mortgage. The WSZ value is not important for the bank and will not give you the right to have the value of that property based on the WSZ value. Most of the time, what we see as well in the Netherlands is that the WSZ value is a lot lower than the actual market value. So you cannot mix up those both values. WSZ value is important because it's the base for the property tax, but for your mortgage, it will be the appraisal report that is important.
Yeah. Then the next question, does the purchase price for a new house include the 21% VAT?
Yeah, so normally the VAT is included in the total purchase price, yes.
All right, then the next question of Ahmed, long question. What if we need more money than the mortgage? We thought of working with options in house, making kitchen. What happens then? Can we make it flexible?
Yeah, so if you want to do like a new kitchen or something like that, then it's called a renovation loan. So that means You buy the property for a certain value at that moment, at the state of the property. It will be put in the appraisal report, and that's the mortgage that you receive from the bank. But then the extra amount that you need to do something to the house, for example, renovating the kitchen, that is called the renovation loan. And it works also with the fact that the appraiser will say after renovation, this will be the extra value of the house. And that amount will be blocked in the account by the bank and will be paid by you to, or directly most of the time, to the constructors that are going to execute the works based on the invoices that they send and when the works are executed. So you will receive one part to buy the property, and the second part for renovation will be paid in pieces to the contractor that is executing the works.
Thank you. I think we answered all questions. If not, then I would recommend to schedule an intake.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you, Rick, for the assistance. Thank you all to follow the webinar, and good luck with the search. Of course, we are there for you if you like to have some more information. I hear already that there are some people maybe with some specific questions for a specific search or in their specific situation. Feel free to contact us via expathousing.nl. You will also receive these recordings afterwards via email, so you can reply or subscribe via that way as well. I don't know, Rick, if you have a link maybe that you can share in the chat,
I put it in the chat
for the people. So Rick will also put a little link in the chat. If you like to schedule an intake, it's between 10 and 30 minutes. How long you want to speak with us, of course, then we can answer all your questions in direct in a separate meeting. For now, we wish you all a very good day. Good luck with your search. And as I say, if you want to use our services or you want to have some more information, feel free to reach out. And we are there with the total team to support. Thank you for now and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.